Hello and welcome to Practical Knife Reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at some vintage Marttiini from Finland Ilves, which is Finnish for Lynx knives. So I've got 3 vintage ones out here and 1 modern one for just to look at the comparison. But we'll do another review video on the modern ones and a side-by-side comparison more in-depth with these. I just wanted to show that they do still make roughly the same model today as they used to. So I've got 3, you see only 2 here. The other one's on my belt here, look up there. So yeah, you can see this is the original sheath. It's a dangler style sheath, Finnish style sheath. Same exact sheath as this. This is the original sheath. Although this one, the dangler loop has broken off. So I've got to fashion some sort of belt loop for this one still. And this one is not the original sheath, but quick history, real quick. Marttiini has been made in Finland since 1928. It was founded by Marttiini. This model, the Ilves, again, the Lynx, if you look on an English language website, they'll probably call it the Lynx knife. If you're looking at a website that's looking in the original Finnish, it's Ilves, I-L-V-E-S. This is their oldest model of knife, and it came out in 1930, and they still make it now. So let's pull these 3 knives out. You can see this one. These are all curly birch handles. This one has by far the least curl in it. This one has the most of the vintage ones. And just for a quick comparison, we'll look at the new one. This one's got wax on it, so I'll have a little bird flew on.
Checking it out.
Yeah. So you can see there is a slight difference between the modern one and the vintage ones. Let's see if we can get that. We're probably going to have to look closer when we get inside, but you can see it says Ilves here. It says J. Marttiini on the inside of this groove. Finland here on this one. We're going to look closer inside when we've got better light on it. Again, J. Marttiini here. Here it says made in Finland, and again, Ilves. And here, J. Marttiini, Rovaniemi, Finland, Ilves. So in case you couldn't tell, these were all etched by hand because they all 3 have different etches on them. Roughly the same things as being said, but all different. And you can see here, J. Marttiini, Finland. All of these are carbon steel. These, I don't know exactly what the composition of the steel is on these vintage ones, because these are, I don't know. I'll have to, in the future, look deeper into if I can pinpoint when each of these was made specifically, because they could have been made anytime between 1930 and now, whereas this one is a modern one. You can see, look at that nice curly birch there on that handle.
That one's beautiful.
Yeah. And this is 80 CRV2 on the modern one, with basically a simulated hammered finish. This one has a ricasso. The other 3 do not. But again, we'll look more in the modern one. Here's the leather sheath for the modern one. It's very much in the same style as the older ones, just with a different design on the front. We'll look at this one again in a future video, do some tests with this, but today I wanted to look just at the vintage ones. So I can move that out of the way. I'm not going to be doing any batoning in this video because, well, these are vintage knives. This one I got from my grandfather. This one I think I got from my grandfather, and it had a terrible, like cracked, varnished finish on it, so I sanded it off and refinished it. And this one also. This one I got myself, also had a really cracked varnished finish, which I also took off and refinished myself. So these ones have been refinished on the handle just to remove the ugly old cracked varnish finish. That's with one end, not one end finish, not finish with 2 ends. Ha ha ha. The obligatory pun.
You're funny.
So yeah, these are just really nice vintage Puukko knives from Finland. They all have a Scandi grind, except for this one. This one's been sharpened so many times that it is convexed on the edge. But these two have the original Scandi grind more or less intact. You generally tend to convex it over time. So let's see how we do on slicing stuff. Oops. This old carbon steel, you can still sharpen it up real nice. Oops. Yep, that one's sharp. That one's goes in there. Again, oops. That's me. That was not the knife. As you can see, the knife is plenty sharp. It's just you know, I mess up. So again, super sharp. And just look at the curly birch on this handle. We'll look again on the inside, but that's just gorgeous on that one. Just gorgeous. And the last one. This is the one with the convex edge. Oops. It's not, this one's not as sharp as the other ones.
I'm going through tape.
Oh, maybe that's why.
This is my COVID Halloween trick-or-treating sign he's cutting through. It's got tape on it.
Yeah, I keep hitting tape. But, well, this one probably could use a resharpening. It's okay. With the convex edge, it's a little bit harder to touch this one up. It feels sharp to the finger, but obviously it's not nearly as sharp as the other ones. But it will cut once I'm not stupid about it. There, you can see I got a few nice slices out of it. Okay, so that's paper. We'll do quick cardboard. I'll do it with the convexed one and one of the Scandi ones. So yeah, actually, not oop, that one kind of just ripping, but not a ton of effort even with that one. Let's go with one of the ones that is a Scandi. Yeah, super easy with that one. And this is the same as this, so I'm going to only bother to do it with that. And now let's take a quick look on some wood. This is where these Scandi grinds really excel. And now I'm, of course, going to jinx myself by saying that. Let's look at the convexed one. This is pine. It's a softwood. You see, nice curls. Not a ton of effort. I had to put a little bit behind it, but not a ton. And then I guess I'll just do oak right away. Then we'll switch over to the other one for the comparison. So this is red oak. It's the hardest wood in our forest. Still looking at the one with the convexed edge, which again, it would not have come like that. If I can get the angle right, it makes nice curls. Those are nice curls. Those will catch fire real quick. And that's on a really hard wood. Let's take a look at the one that still has the Scandi grind more or less intact on it. Now this, I don't know if you probably can't tell how much force I'm putting into it just by looking, but this is cutting through like butter. Even though the grain is angled a little bit away from me. Whoops, there it goes. Almost no force going into this, and I'm getting really nice curls really quickly. Let's go with a really slow. So for those of you who like your really fine curls, yeah, you can get the really fine. I mean, feel that, Ma? It's like hair.
Yeah.
So, but I'm a quick and dirty kind of guy. In case you haven't been able to tell from our previous videos. And the oak, red oak. Oops. I got the grain coming out at me, so I'm chipping it out right there. Let's try a different face of it. Not as nice on this one. Not sure if it's the grain or just me, or if it's yeah, okay, I'm on the same face as our original curls now. Not nearly as much force going into it. Must have just been the grain on that other face I picked. But yeah, we'll get a nice fine curl going for the folks who like their nice fine curls. So yeah, the Scandi better for going through wood. Not as stout of an edge, you're gonna damage it a little bit easier. But yeah, that's our look outside at the Marttiini Ilves Lynx knives, the vintage ones, and we'll take a closer look inside in just a second. We're back on Practical Knife Reviews. We're gonna do some quick specs and whatnot on the vintage Marttiini Ilves Lynx knives. So you can see here, these two have the same sheath. This one still has the dangler, although as you can see, it's almost ripped through right there. These are, as I said, all vintage knives, and the leather is pretty old. You can tell the sheath on this one's quite old. And this one is not the original sheath, but it was fashioned here afterwards. Now these two, as I said, when I got them, they had a coat of varnish on them, but it was all yellowed and cracked and gross, so I took it off and just refinished it with my homemade wood sealant, which is just beeswax and mineral oil. But let's pull these out here so we can get a nice look at these in the good light. And you can see that one still has varnish on it, but the finish on that varnish is still quite decent. So these all have curly birch handles. In case I haven't mentioned on the channel before, and I don't think I have, curly birch is basically a diseased section of the silver birch tree. Silver birch is European, it's a European birch tree that's kind of like a cross between a white birch and a yellow birch here that we have in the US. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's genetically more similar to the yellow birch, but it looks more similar to a white birch. But if the tree has disease in it, it gets these little spots on it, these dark spots. And it's basically like an internalized burl of the tree rather than being a burl on the outside of the tree. It's all on the inside. But birch was traditionally the wood that was used in Finland. Now you can see this one has a lot less patterning compared to the other two. But we'll get a nice close look at that anyway. Let's put this light up here. So you can see there's a lot less patterning on it. There's just a little bit here. There's a split in the handle, but I've more or less filled that with wax. And I haven't mentioned yet, but these are all rat tail tangs, hidden tangs. You can see the tang is not exposed on the handle. It goes straight through it like a stick, right through to the end, and then it is peened over on the end here. You can see how that is. I'll give you a look at the other ones too. This is one of them. Let's see if you can see it. It's worn off pretty far, but right here above my fingernail, if I get the light right, there it is. You can see Ilves, I-L-V-E-S, means lynx in Finnish. And if you look in the groove, you might be able to see J. Marttiini. Yeah, J. Marttiini, Finland. That one's been sharpened quite a bit. This one's in the best condition of the three. And look at the quality of the curly birch on the handle there. Again, there's a little split right here in the grain, but filled with wax at this point. You can see how that tang is peened over. But just look at that curly birch. And you can see right here below my fingernail, if I can get the light to show up right on it, it says Ilves. And here it says made in Finland. And on the inside of this groove, it says J. Marttiini again. And this one is by far the most worn of the three. You can see the handle is varnished, but underneath some relatively nicely patterned curly birch. Got a peened over tang again, but you can see the shape of the blade is a little bit different because it's been sharpened up more, it's been convexed, and the tip has been taken down a little bit because whoever sharpened this earlier would have basically rounded off the tip, and to get the tip back, they ground it down. And you can see the etching here is significantly deeper. J. Marttiini, Rovaniemi, Finland. And right here below my fingernail, see Ilves. And again, that means Lynx in Finnish. So, I guess all that's left to do is to take some measurements while my mom comments on it. And I'll be doing the measurements on this one since it's the one that's in the closest to the original condition that it would have been in.
The comments are, I love these knives. The handle, the style, but to me, the leather sheaths that they're in are so beautiful with the patterns that they've cut, with the reindeer, the guy driving the sleighs. This is the kind of knife my dad would have taken with us when we went rabbit hunting.
Well, they were literally the knives that he took. 2 of these were from him, or at least one of them was.
Yeah, he would take these knives when we would go rabbit hunting, so it's something that, you know, gives me a lot of pleasure looking at. Just, I had a lot of fun hunting with them.
So on this one, what we're looking at is right at 8.5 inches overall. The blade, and on this one, there's on all of these vintage ones, there's no ricasso, so there's no unsharpened section of the blade, but this is 4.25 inches long of blade. And again, here's the sheath. Measure it in the sheath just for the sake of it. In the sheath, we're looking right at 9 inches. Now let's get a weight measurement of this. Even though this is the sheath that has the dangler that's torn off, I've got to figure out how to address that and figure out a way to perhaps address the one that looks like it's going to get torn off. So let's move that light so you can see the number there. When you're at 118 grams, which is 4.2 ounces. So yeah, overall, again, carbon steel, made in Finland. All 3 of these are vintage. And Marttiini, now, if you ever find a vintage one of these for sale and you can get it for, let's say, if it's in decent condition, anything under $45, get it, because you're not going to find a much better deal for a nice bushcraft knife than that. And these are they're all high quality when you have these vintage Marttiini knives. And Marttiini still does make Ilves or Lynx knives. You've got 2 varieties, stainless, well, they have a bunch of varieties. They have stainless steel varieties and carbon steel varieties, and in several different sizes. We'll have another video looking at the more modern varieties of these in the future, and perhaps compare side by side a little bit closer, like we did a little bit in this video. But that'll be in the future. For now, I think that we're going to wrap this video up with the look at the vintage Ilves knives from Marttiini. Any final comments, Mom?
No, but you know, the dark case.
This one has just
that one. That one.
The replacement case.
Yeah, it's still in the same fashion with the boot tip up at the end of it, which is what I really like, and it's almost like a Scandinavian shoe design, and the quality of the leathers on them are really nice. So even if that was an original, I'm surprised because it's made the same boot tip up.
Yeah, and just the one thing that you got to note about these sheaths then is that on the vintage ones, if the leather quality has deteriorated over the decades, you might have to figure out how to replace the dangler part of the sheath. But yeah, these all were relatively dry when I got them, and I put wax onto them.
I did have one other comment. Have you ever told them how you make your wood sealant?
I told them what's in it, but my wood sealant, you just make a double boiler with a mason jar on the inside of a pot of boiling water. And I don't know the exact proportion off the top of my head because I just keep replacing the beeswax and the mineral oil when it runs down, and I just adjust based on the consistency. But it's just a handful of little beeswax pellets and mineral oil, and you just melt them together, and then when it cools, it solidifies, and I can tell roughly how I have the proportion of beeswax to mineral oil based on the consistency while it's hardened. You want it to be solid. It has to be a solid, but if you scoop it up with your finger, you should be able to smear it with a little bit of effort onto stuff, and then you know that you're at the right consistency, and you just melt it into stuff. It works on everything: leather, wood. It works for greasing pivots on stuff.
It works for skin.
Works
in
for
our
skin.
northern climates, I've literally put it as a face balm, and when we have 20 below weather, it's really good at protecting you from the cold.
Yeah, my wood sealant is good stuff. So next time I make up a batch, like I said, I just keep replacing what's in the jar when it runs a little bit low. And if I'm going to make some more, I'll take a video for you guys, and hopefully that'll be useful for you because it is really good stuff. So if that's all, Ma, then we'll wrap her up for the day. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Practical Knife Reviews.